Sarah stared at her phone screen, watching it ring. Michelle. Again. For the third time in 10 minutes. She almost answered. That was the thing about being the person everyone leans on. The guilt was automatic, like muscle memory. But she didn't answer. Not this time. If you've ever had someone in your life who just takes and takes without ever asking if you're thou okay with giving, this story is going to hit different. And please, hit that subscribe button before we start. You're not going to want to miss what happens next. It was a Friday night and Sarah had plans. Real plans. She'd taken the afternoon off work. Something she rarely did, and she was meeting her friend Jessica at a wine bar downtown. It was supposed to be low-key. Just the two of them catching up, something she'd been canceling on for months because of work or exhaustion, or more often, because her sister needed something. The call came at 5:47 p.m. Hey, babe. Michelle's voice came through, already breathless, already rushed. Sarah knew this tone. She'd heard it 1,000 times. So, huge favor. I know it's last minute, but I'm literally in a panic right now. Sarah closed her eyes. She'd promised herself she wouldn't do this anymore. Patterson had literally just talked about it last week during therapy. Learning to say no without guilt, without explanation, without letting other people's emergencies become your emergencies. What's going on? Sarah asked anyway. David's boss just called. There's a dinner thing tonight for work. Like super important for his promotion. And our babysitter canceled. She got sick or something. I know you probably have plans, but could you maybe watch the kids? Just for like 3 or 4 hours? Please? Sarah heard the kids in the background. Emma's voice, loud and demanding, and Michael asking about dinner. Normal Friday night chaos. She thought about the wine bar, about how Jessica had already made the reservation, about how good it would feel to just be a person for a few hours instead of always being the person everyone calls when they need something. Michelle. I can't tonight. I have plans. There was a pause, a real pause. Like Michelle was trying to compute what Sarah had just said. You have plans? Yeah. I told you about this like 2 weeks ago. Okay. But this is for David's job, like, this could be a big deal for our family. There it was. The shift. The subtle thing that happened in Michelle's voice when she wasn't getting her way. Not quite anger, but the start of it. The beginning of the guilt trip machinery warming up. I understand that, Sarah said carefully. But I already have plans, and I can't cancel them. Can't or won't. Sarah felt her chest tighten. This was the moment where she usually buckled, where she'd say something like, okay, fine, I'll reschedule, and then spend the evening resenting both Michelle and herself. But something was different this time. Maybe it was therapy. Maybe it was just that she was tired. Tired of being the person with flexible plans, the person whose life didn't matter as much, the person whose no could always be negotiated into a yes. Won't, Sarah said quietly. I won't cancel my plans. I'm sorry, but I really can't do this tonight. Whoa. Okay, so you're just not gonna help out? I'm not available tonight, Michelle. I'm sorry. You know what? Never mind. I'll figure it out. And then she hung up. Sarah sat there for a moment, holding her phone, waiting for the guilt to overwhelm her, and it did come, creeping in at the edges. But she held on to something else. A small, hard feeling of rightness. She'd said no, she'd meant it, and she hadn't offered an explanation or a backup plan or a time when she could help instead. She just said no. She got ready, took a shower, did her makeup, actually did her makeup with eyeshadow and everything, and put on the navy dress she'd been saving for going out. It looked good. She looked good, capable, like a person with her own life. She was checking her reflection one more time when her buzzer rang. Not her phone, her apartment buzzer. The one you used when someone was downstairs wanting to get into the building. Sarah buzzed them in without thinking, assuming it was the DoorDash she'd ordered to eat before heading out. But when she opened her door, it wasn't a delivery driver. It was Tommy, the guy who ran the bodega downstairs, and he looked uncomfortable. Hey, Sarah, he said, there's a taxi driver downstairs. He's looking for you. Says he's supposed to drop off 2 kids. Sarah's stomach did a weird flip. What? 2 kids. He says the mom put them in his cab and told him to bring them to this address. He's been down there for like 15 minutes trying to figure out what to do. Kids don't really know what's going on either. Sarah felt something hot and ugly start building in her chest. She didn't even say goodbye to Tommy. She just grabbed her keys and her phone and headed for the stairs. Downstairs, the taxi was idling in front of the building. Through the back window, she could see them. Emma, with her gap-toothed smile, looking confused. Michael playing with something on his lap. Their overnight bags were piled next to them. The driver saw her coming and got out, relief flooding his face. "Thank God," he said. "I've been trying to call the mom, but she's not answering. She just said to drop them here and that you'd take care of it. I got them for $20 from the mom, but the meter's up to 45 now and she just put them in your car." Sarah's voice sounded strange to her own ears. "Yeah, about 20 minutes ago. Over on Maple. She was in a hurry. Said you were their aunt and that you'd be expecting them." Sarah wasn't expecting them. Sarah had said no. Sarah had specifically, clearly, calmly said no. She opened the back door of the taxi. Emma immediately unbuckled herself and threw her arms around Sarah's legs. "Aunt Sarah? Mom said you wanted us to come stay with you." "Did she?" Sarah said, her jaw tight. Michael was still in his car seat, and he looked up at her with those solemn eyes he had. He was 9, old enough to understand that something was off about this situation. "Is Mom not coming?" he asked quietly. "No, buddy. But I'm here." Sarah worked to make her voice normal, worked to not let the kids see how angry she was. "Come on. Let's get your stuff upstairs." She took out her wallet and handed the driver $70. "I'm sorry. Thank you for bringing them." The drive was gone before she finished speaking. Sarah grabbed the overnight bags and ushered the kids into the building, her mind already spinning. She was calling Michelle the second the kids were settled. She was calling Michelle, and she was going to say exactly what she thought about this. This wasn't just crossing a line. This was obliterating the line. But as they climbed the stairs, Emma chattering about their day and Michael quiet beside her, Sarah felt something shift inside her. This wasn't just about saying no anymore. This was about what happened when you meant it. This was about what happened when someone decided that your boundaries didn't matter, and Sarah was just getting started. Sarah got the kids settled in her apartment as quickly as she could. She put on a movie, something mindless and colorful, and set them up on the couch with water bottles and some crackers she found in her pantry. It wasn't ideal. They were supposed to eat dinner. But right now, she needed to call Michelle, and she needed to do it alone. She went into her bedroom and closed the door. Her hands were shaking a little bit when she dialed. Michelle answered on the first ring, which meant she'd been waiting. "Hey, so I found a solution." Michelle started before Sarah could even say hello. "What the hell did you do?" Sarah's voice was low and controlled, which somehow made it scarier than if she'd yelled. "I'm sorry, I know it's not ideal, but David's boss was very specific about tonight and you put your children in a taxi with a stranger and sent them to my apartment. You didn't ask me. You didn't wait for a yes. You just did it." There was silence on the other end. Sarah could picture Michelle's face right now. That expression she got when someone wasn't cooperating with her plan, like she was genuinely confused why people weren't just automatically doing what she wanted. "I texted you," Michelle said finally. "You texted me. Michelle, you called me 3 times begging me to babysit. I said no, and then you dropped your kids off at my place like I'm some kind of emergency daycare. That's not a solution. That's..." Sarah paused, trying to find the right words. "That's insane. They're your niece and nephew. It's not like you don't know them. That's not the point. The point is that I told you no, and you decided my no didn't matter. Do you understand how fucked up that is?" Michelle's voice changed. It got higher, tighter. "Okay, you know what? I don't appreciate your tone. I'm trying to manage a situation here, and you're being really unsupportive." "I'm being unsupportive." Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You violated my boundaries. You went around my decision. You literally put your kids in a taxi without telling me they were coming. How is that my problem?" "Because you're family, Sarah. Because family helps each other. Family also respects each other's decisions. Family also asks instead of just doing whatever they want and expecting everyone else to deal with the consequences." Michelle took a breath. Sarah could almost hear her regrouping, shifting tactics. "Look, I'm sorry. I really am. But I'm in a really difficult position right now. David needs this dinner to go well. This could be a promotion, Sarah. This could change everything for us. And I didn't have anywhere else to go. And there it was. The real message underneath everything else. Sarah's problem wasn't as important as Michelle's problem. Sarah's evening, her boundaries, her agency, all of it was less important than Michelle's need. You had somewhere to go, Sarah said quietly. You just didn't want to go there because it would have been inconvenient. You could have called Mom. You could have called Aunt Linda. You could have paid for a sitter. You could have asked David to skip the dinner. You had options, Michelle. You chose to ignore my no because you wanted what you wanted more. So what do you want me to do right now? Come pick them up? Leave you at the dinner? I want you to come pick them up right now. Before I put them in a taxi to your house. Sarah, come on. The dinner is starting in like 20 minutes. I can't. I don't care. That's your problem, not mine. You created this situation. You come fix it. It'll take me 40 minutes to get there. Then you should have thought about that before you got in that taxi and dropped your kids off at my apartment. Michelle was quiet for a long moment. Sarah could practically feel her sister's brain working, trying to figure out how to manipulate this situation back into something manageable. Fine, Michelle said, finally, her voice cold now. Fine. I'm coming to pick them up. But Sarah, you need to understand that this is really hurtful. Like, I'm honestly shocked that you'd be this way right now. I was just in a bind, and I thought family would have my back. Goodbye, Michelle. Sarah hung up before Michelle could say anything else. She sat on her bed for a moment, her heart pounding, feeling simultaneously terrible and completely right about what she'd done. Then she went back to the living room, where Emma and Michael were curled up on her couch, half watching the movie. Hey guys, she said, sitting down next to them. Your mom is going to come pick you up soon, okay? I know that's probably confusing. I'm sorry about all this. Michael looked at her with those smart, sad eyes of his. Is Mom mad at you? Nobody. We just had a disagreement. That happens sometimes with grown-ups. My teacher says when you disagree with someone, you should try to understand their side, Michael said. Sarah felt a pinch in her chest. He was a good kid. He really was. But this wasn't a lesson about understanding Michelle's side. This was a lesson about boundaries, and she wasn't going to sacrifice that lesson just because it was harder to explain to a 9-year-old. You're right, Sarah said. And I do understand your mom's side. She was stressed, and she needed help. But there are ways to ask for help that are respectful to other people. And I couldn't help tonight, so the respectful thing to do would have been to accept that and find another way. Does that make sense? Michael nodded slowly, like he was still processing. Emma, for her part, had already moved on and was asking if they could order pizza. Sarah turned her phone over and saw the text Michelle had mentioned. It was from 45 minutes ago. It just said, running late. Can you watch the kids tonight? We'll pick up tomorrow morning. Thanks so much. Tomorrow morning. Michelle was planning to leave them there overnight. Without asking, without confirming, just assuming Sarah would be fine with it. Sarah put her phone face down on the couch and ordered pizza with Emma. An hour and 20 minutes later, the buzzer rang. Michelle was downstairs, and she came up looking flustered but otherwise fine, like this was just a minor inconvenience and not a complete violation of trust. I'm sorry, she said as soon as she came through the door, and her apology sounded automatic, like something she'd learned to say when she wasn't actually sorry. I know I handled that badly. I was just stressed. Yeah, Sarah said. You did handle it badly. Michelle packed the kids up quickly. They didn't want to leave. Emma was upset because she hadn't finished her pizza. Michael was quiet in that way that made Sarah think he understood more than either of the adults were saying. At the door, Michelle turned back to Sarah. You know, I didn't mean anything bad by it, right? I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was just trying to get through my night. I know, Sarah said. And she did know. That was actually the worst part. Michelle wasn't trying to be mean. She was just completely incapable of seeing Sarah as a person with her own life and her own needs. She was just incapable of accepting the word no. After they left, Sarah stood in her empty apartment. It was nearly 8 o'clock. She could still make the wine bar. Jessica was probably still there. But Sarah didn't feel like going anymore. She felt hollowed out and angry in a way that wine wouldn't fix. She sat on her couch, The same couch where Emma and Michael had been 15 minutes ago, and thought about how tired she was. Tired of being flexible, tired of being understanding, tired of being the person everyone could count on to rearrange her life. Tired of people she loved not respecting her boundaries. She picked up her phone and did something she'd never done before. She started documenting everything. The time Michelle had called, the time she said no, the time the taxi arrived, the time of the conversation. All of it written down in her notes app with dates and times. She didn't know why she was doing it. She just knew that this time felt different. This time she wasn't going to let it go. This time, there were going to be consequences. The next morning, Sarah called her therapist's office and managed to get an emergency appointment. Dr. Patterson fit her in at 11, which meant Sarah was able to sit in her office and lay out everything that had happened, everything she was feeling, and everything she was thinking about doing next. What you experienced was a boundary violation, Dr. Patterson said simply. A pretty serious one. Michelle knew what you said. She heard the word no, and she decided that her needs mattered more than your autonomy. I keep thinking maybe I'm overreacting. Like they're my niece and nephew. It's not the end of the world. Is that what you actually think, or is that what you've been told to think? Sarah sat with that for a moment. That's what I've been told, she said finally. My whole life, basically. Like family is supposed to just handle things. You don't say no, you figure it out. And how's that worked out for you? I'm burnt out. I resent everyone. I don't have a life because I'm too busy managing everyone else's lives. Dr. Patterson leaned forward slightly. Then what do you want to do? I want her to understand what she did. I want her to take it seriously instead of just apologizing and moving on like it didn't happen. I want her to change. And what if she doesn't? Sarah didn't answer right away. That was the question she'd been avoiding, because deep down she already knew the answer. Michelle wasn't going to change. Michelle had been like this for 43 years, and Sarah's anger, as justified as it was, probably wasn't going to rewire her entire personality. Then I guess I have to decide what I'm willing to tolerate and what I'm not, Sarah said quietly. Exactly, Dr. Patterson said. And the thing about setting a boundary is that it only means something if you're willing to enforce it. If Michelle does this again, what are you going to do? Sarah thought about that question all through the weekend. She thought about it while she was at work on Monday. She thought about it while she sat in her apartment that evening, finally drinking that wine she'd planned to drink on Friday night. On Tuesday morning, Michelle called. Hey, I know things were weird on Friday, but I was thinking maybe we could grab lunch this week. I feel like we need to talk about it. Sarah felt that old urge rising up. The urge to say yes, to smooth things over, to make Michelle feel okay about what she'd done. But she pushed past it. I don't think that's a good idea right now, Sarah said. I need some space. What do you mean, space? Sarah, you're not going to hold this against me forever, are you? I'm not holding anything against you. I just need time to think about what I'm comfortable with going forward. What are you comfortable with? We're sisters. We're supposed to be in each other's lives. We are. But things need to change. You can't just make decisions about my time without asking me. You can't put your kids in a taxi to my apartment because you didn't like my answer. And I'm not going to be your backup plan when you're in a bind. Michelle's voice got sharp. So what, you're just cutting me off over one mistake? It's not one mistake, Michelle. This is a pattern. This has always been a pattern. I say no. You decide I didn't really mean it. You do what you wanted to do anyway, and then I'm just supposed to be fine with it. I can't believe you're being like this. I believe you can't, actually. Because you've never had to face consequences for it before. I've always just absorbed them. So what do you want from me? Sarah had thought about this. She'd written it down in her phone at 2 a.m, trying to be fair and clear and not just angry. I want you to understand that my no means no. I want you to respect my boundaries. And I want you to get some help, honestly. Because you have a pattern of treating people like their time and energy are yours to use whenever you need them. And that's not okay. It's not okay with me, and it shouldn't be okay with David either. Are you seriously telling me I need therapy? I'm telling you that I think it would help you, And I'm telling you that I'm not available to be your safety net anymore. If you need babysitting, you figure it out. If you need advice, you think about whether I've actually offered to give it. If I say no to something, you accept that and you move on. And if I don't. Sarah took a breath. Then I'm going to have to limit contact until I feel safe in the relationship again. There was a long pause on the other end. She could almost feel Michelle's shock through the phone. You're going to cut me off. I'm going to protect myself? That's the same thing? No, Sarah said. It's not. Cutting you off would mean I'm never talking to you again. Protecting myself means I'm not available to be treated the way I've been treated. There's a difference? Michelle hung up. Just like that. No goodbye. No, I'll think about it. Nothing. Just a dial tone. Sarah sat with that for a while. She felt sad and relieved at the same time. She'd said something she'd been needing to say for years, and the response had been immediate rejection. But instead of feeling terrible about it, she mostly felt clear. The next 2 weeks were quiet. Sarah didn't hear from Michelle. She didn't hear from her mom asking why Michelle seemed upset. She didn't hear from anyone trying to mediate or convince her that she was being too harsh. It was almost eerie, actually, the absence of all that pressure and negotiation. But then came the real test. 3 weeks after the taxi incident, Sarah got a call from David. Hey, he said, sounding uncomfortable. I'm really sorry to bother you at work, but I'm not sure what to do here. Michelle's been really down this week. Like, really sad. And I think a lot of it has to do with what happened with you guys. I know you're upset with her, and you have every right to be, but is there any way you could maybe call her? Or see her? I'm worried about her. Sarah felt that old guilt trying to creep back in. David was a good person. He wasn't the one who'd done anything wrong, and he clearly cared about Michelle enough to reach out, which meant Michelle was probably actually struggling. I care about Michelle, Sarah said carefully, but I can't be the one to fix this. This needs to be between her and me when she's ready to have a real conversation about it. I know. I hate seeing her like this. I know you do, and I know this is hard. But David, the thing that's happening right now, this is actually important. This is the moment where Michelle either figures out that her actions have consequences, or she doesn't. And if I just smooth this over and act like everything's fine, then nothing changes. And I can't do that anymore. After they hung up, Sarah sat at her desk for a long time, just breathing. She was doing the right thing. She was pretty sure she was doing the right thing, but it didn't feel good. 2 weeks later, Sarah was at the grocery store when she ran into her mom. Oh, honey, her mom said, pulling her into a hug. Michelle told me what happened. That must have been so stressful for you. Sarah tensed up. This felt like an opening for her mom to convince her to reconcile, to go easy on Michelle, to remember that family was important. It was stressful, Sarah confirmed. But I'm okay. Michelle feels just awful about it. She's been crying all week. She said you're not talking to her anymore. I'm not talking to her until she understands what she did and is ready to change things. I don't hate her, Mom. I just can't keep doing this. Her mom looked uncomfortable. You know she was just stressed, right? She didn't mean any harm. I know she didn't mean any harm, but that doesn't change what happened. And honestly, not meaning any harm isn't the same as being responsible for your own actions. I just worry that you're being too hard on her. And I'm worried that you've spent my entire life being too easy on her. Sarah said, and she meant it. I can't be the person everyone leans on anymore. I'm tired, Mom. Her mom's face softened then. Actually softened in a way Sarah hadn't seen in a long time. I know you are, her mom said quietly. I'm sorry we all did that to you. They didn't talk about it more that day. But something shifted. Her mom started treating Sarah's no like it actually meant something. When Sarah said she couldn't do something, her mom didn't push. She didn't suggest alternatives or try to negotiate. She just said, okay, no problem. It was small, but it was something. 2 months after the taxi incident, Michelle finally reached out. Not a call or a text. An email, which felt appropriate somehow, like she was giving Sarah space and time to read it without pressure. The email was long. It wasn't perfect. There were moments where Sarah could feel Michelle trying to justify her actions. But it was genuine. She talked about how she'd realized through some hard conversations with David and her own therapist, that she had a pattern of not respecting boundaries. She acknowledged that what she'd done was wrong, not because she'd been mean, but because she'd made a unilateral decision about Sarah's time without consent. She apologized for that specifically, and she asked if maybe they could talk about rebuilding their relationship, but only if Sarah wanted to. Sarah read it 3 times. Then she responded. She said that she appreciated the apology and the reflection. She said she was open to rebuilding things, but that it would take time. She set out the boundaries they'd have going forward. Clear, specific ones about asking before assuming, about accepting a no, about Sarah's time being hers to manage. She said she didn't expect perfection, but she expected effort. And she said that if Michelle ever violated those boundaries again, they'd be back to square one. They had coffee a week later. It was awkward at first. Michelle kept apologizing and Sarah kept redirecting her toward the future instead of dwelling in the past. By the end, they were talking about normal things. Work stuff, David's actual promotion, Emma's soccer team. It wasn't the same as before, but it was different. It was real, in a way it hadn't been before. And maybe the best part, Sarah wasn't resentful anymore. She'd spent so long absorbing everyone else's choices, managing other people's emotions and crises, being the person who just figured things out. But the moment she said no and meant it, the moment she followed through with real consequences and didn't back down, everything changed. Michelle had to change. Her mom had to change. David had to see his wife differently. And Sarah got her life back. It wasn't dramatic. There were no screaming matches or shocking revelations. No one got arrested or lost their job. But Sarah's quiet, firm decision to set a boundary and hold it actually transformed her entire family system just by refusing to be what she'd always been. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about doing something to someone else. It's about refusing to keep doing things for them at the expense of yourself. If this story hit you, if you've ever been the person everyone counts on to just figure it out, please hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Because these stories matter. They matter because someone out there right now is deciding whether their no is worth standing up for. And seeing someone else do it. Sometimes that's exactly what we need. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe so you never miss a story about real people making hard choices and getting their lives back. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.